In this video, I want to speak about parental abuse. This will not be the only edition on this subject. In the following edition, I'm going to have with me a behavioural specialist. It's become quite an epidemic within this country and overseas. Of course, we're all aware, aren't we, of child abuse. We're aware of marital abuse between a husband and a wife, all kinds of different abuse. Of recent days, I've been considering parental abuse over the years. I have witnessed it and seen almost a sense of entitlement of young people with their parents. I would add before we begin that I will not be discussing anybody I know in this video series. So if you're watching this and I know you, I am not talking about you. I would never do that. Having said that, it is a very, very serious situation in homes right across Australia. I also believe there are many parents or people in an abused environment situation that are not even aware that they're being abused, arriving at a place where they're almost institutionalized, believing that this relationship is normal, it's how it's meant to be. Let me tell you, by the time we have finished this video series, my hope and prayer is that those parents, and because this is what the subject is on, will become aware of abuse in a manner that will help them and help their children. Now, we won't be discussing, particularly in this edition, young children. We will be discussing and approaching this situation of late teens into early adulthood. And let me tell you, there are some parents I have met over the years who don't only have young adults in their home abusing them, but grown adults in their mid-30s and even in their 40s and beyond, who are living at home with their parents captive to their will. Those who have never suffered parental abuse will be surprised by this. Those who have raised the family and the children have grown from childhood to adolescence into adulthood and moved away and have their lives will look with horror. However, it is an epidemic. Of course, abuse is to encroach upon the liberty and freedom of another person. There is a scale of abuse in Australia that ranges from pure bad language, verbal abuse, right through to sexual and physical abuse. So it's quite a range. And abuse within itself is to distort the relationship between the abuser and the abused, to literally, repeatedly abuse another person with a sense of entitlement that it's okay to do. Let me tell you, it's not okay to do at all. Now, there'll be people watching this video who will feel a sense of conviction that they are abusing their parents. There will be parents watching this video who will possibly receive a wake-up call on how to go about overcoming this dreadful situation. Now, I understand that if I talk about the old days, young people will roll their eyes. However, right throughout history, it has been the norm for a child to grow into teenagehood and to look forward to their adulthood. Now, psychologists tell us that the brain has developed, fully developed, around the age of 24. That has little to do with maturity And of course, I will not be getting into other situations like people that are handicapped, for example, whether it be psychological or physical. Well, parents obviously love those young people, no matter what age they are, whether they're young or, getting older. I'm not debating nor asserting that a parent should not look after their children, no matter what age. But I am saying, irrespective of whether that person is handicapped or not, the parent should never be abused. In fact, nobody should be abused. My personal story was that by the time I was 17, my mother was approved to move into a housing commission house. She had applied many years before. She was approved, but just for her alone, not for me. And so I was old enough, I felt, to live on my own, and I did. I had a job, I supported myself, and from the age of 17, I began my life as I felt an adult. In fact, in my generation, it was the norm for a person from the age somewhere between 18 and 24 or 25 to have begun their life married and having children. Now, young people today look at that and go, "You've got to be kidding me." Well, that has been the way it's been right throughout history. The Bible talks about a man looking after his wife and the woman leaving her parents and cleaving to her husband. There is a leaving of the parents, not a departing of relationship, but a responsibility shift. There will be people, parents, who feel abused and they literally don't know what to do. Of course, you love your children. And of course, no matter what age, particularly if they're over the age of 24. Remember we talked about the brain being developed. I often joke that you don't raise your children through to 18 anymore, you raise them through to 30. And it's partway true. I see all different kinds of abuse, folks, where young couple who have a child will abuse the parents through the grandchildren. I think that's distasteful. They will have their reasons for it, but it is either bordering on or is abuse, where then the parents are brokenhearted, not able to see their grandchildren. We see situations of entitlement where a young adult, 18, 19, 20, 23, 25, 27, 28, will have a sense of entitlement and expectation that their parents will clean up after them all the time. Clean their room and do all these sorts of things. Now look, if the parent wants to clean the room, I don't want to get into all of this in the sense of whether you do or whether you don't. If you want to and you feel, well, as a mother or a father, that you want to do all of these things for your children, well, okay. My personal view, I guess I may as well say, is that you should be training your children to mature into adulthood and to acquire the sense of responsibility so they can stand on their own 2 feet. However, in the absence of that, or if you feel as a parent you have made the mistake or you have not been a good enough parent, as it were, and I've heard many parents say that to me, let me make this clear to you. It still does not make it right for you to be abused. And I have seen situations over the many years and heard of situations where a young person feels a sense of entitlement and literally complain to their parents that their room is not clean, expecting the parents to do it, or their clothes are not washed, or where the parent now has to run around. I saw I've seen lately an ad on television. I think it's brilliant. I'm sure the lady is the grandmother and she's driving her grandchild. You've probably seen the ad. And the young person is complaining that the grandmother won't let her drive the car. And you just see the captions on the screen, and the grandmother's thinking as to why she gets cheap insurance is because she doesn't let anybody drive her car. And as the ad progresses on, the commercial moves on, the young person thinks, well, you know what, I should probably get a job. And the grandparent thinks, yes. There is a place where you move from childhood through adolescence into adulthood. Transactional analysis is an interesting subject, and of course when I have in the next edition the behavioural specialist with me, we'll discuss this in greater measure. And in fact, this whole subject in greater measure, for which I believe needs to be on the table of conversation for us all, and to come out of the closet and discussed, as so many other abusive situations are. Transactional analysis is where you have a relationship between a parent and a child, a teacher and a student, and an adult to adult. The outworking of those relationships and how you arrive at an adult relationship requires not only some skill, but a lot of patience, a lot of learning. And I guess, isn't it true that nobody is born with a handbook on how to be the perfect parent? And I would encourage you parents that when you look through the Bible, so many of those families were very, very, very dysfunctional, extremely dysfunctional, and yet God had his way in them all. And I would say to you parents, well, a number of things. The word no to a young person is not always a bad word. I would encourage you that if you are in an abused situation where you feel your young person, when I say young, they may be 18, 20, 24, 26, 28, 30, and they're abusing you, whether they're living at home or not, and you're feeling that sense of abuse, I would encourage you to, well, you're going to need to talk to them about it, but you're also going to need to get it out of you, get it out of your thinking, get it out of you, that the emotions, and talk to a mature friend. Have a conversation about it. Get some moral support. An abuser will use all kinds of manipulation, emotional manipulation. They will use with their parents that sense of duty, that sense of obligation. They will place that upon a parent, where the parent finds it very difficult to talk themselves out of it because they feel emotionally obligated, relationally obligated to do these things for this child of theirs. Keeping in mind, when a child is a child, 5, 6, 10, 12, and so on, of course, they're dependent upon you. However, they need to arrive at a place of independence where they can relate to you as an adult. Now, I've often said that people tread the course of least resistance. Parent, if you make it easy for a young person who is now an adult to depend on you, and that they will tread the course of least resistance, unless they have that maturity within, of course, they will tread the course of least resistance, and they will depend upon you. There is that place where you need to say no. Not easy, is it? However, there is that place you have to come to. Abuse will distort you spiritually, emotionally, relationally, psychologically, sometimes even physically, and has led to all types of dangerous situations. Young people, when I say young, over the age of 18, of course, let me talk to you for a moment. We used to have an 18th key. It's not so popular anymore. However, you would receive a key, and on that everyone would sign it. And on that, it represented that you were now at the voting age. Unfortunately, you're allowed to drink, and you could be enlisted into the armed forces. And of course, you could vote. So, it's a great age, the age of 18. Then 21 was always considered the adult key. You would receive your 21st key and you'd have a party. You had arrived into adult. The expectations upon you were that you would then commence your life as an adult. Well, possibly a bit young these days. Of course, there's a lot of young people that would say, you've got to be kidding me. I want to party, I want to travel, I want to do these things. Well, if you want to do those things, you need to be able to support yourself to do them. Because we are seeing situations today where a 40, 50-year-old, we'll say the children of the parents, who now have parents that are in their 60s and 70s, are also abusing their parents financially. So this is not only physical, emotional, spiritual, relational, psychological, it can also be financial. And it's important, parent, that you, in fact, there's a term used in helping people, and I'm careful to say this because I don't want people to go out damaging their children, damaging themselves. But there are many times until the bottom is dropped out from someone that they will refuse to stand on their own 2 feet. They will continue to depend upon you irrespective. And so there are times you just have to say no. You see, an abused person in all kinds of situations will continue sometimes to do these things just to keep the peace. Well, friends, when that is stealing from your peace of mind, your heart, right, and the peace and tranquility of your home, then you are being abused. As I'm talking, I'm sure there are some people considering whether or not they're an abused person, whether or not they're an abused parent. Well, parents, there's a lot said about abused children. There's a lot said about abused wives and husbands. There's a lot said about abuse in general. Not as much said, and there needs to be more said about abused parents who are held captive, where the peace and the tranquility of their home is disturbed and sometimes even destroyed because of this young person. I've heard of situations where some parents will wait to go home. They will circle the block a few times in order to go back to their own home. It's been said by many parents, I pay the bills, this is my home, you do what I say. That's not so far from the truth, to be frank with you. If you are paying the bills, if it is your home, I want to remind you, parent, it is your home. You have earned the privilege and the right for it to be your domain where you do make the rules. It's your home. And I would encourage you to consider taking steps forward to process emotionally how to move out of an abused environment. If this is your choice, not easy. I didn't say it's going to be easy. However, that young person is going to need to mature. If you are being physically abused, parent, by a young person, don't hesitate, and I'm serious, don't hesitate to call the police. There is no place for physical violence. We see relationships become distorted, and sometimes parents will put up with these situations. There is a law in Australia called elder abuse, and of course we see some aged parents being abused physically, emotionally, relationally, and financially by their parents. It's a crime, and it's punishable by law. Elder abuse is very, very serious. Folks, there is so much I could say on this subject, and there will be more to say. This is the first edition, we'll call it, video on parental abuse. The next edition will be next week, where I'm with a behavioural specialist on this subject. I'm going to bring in other specialists to discuss this in greater measure. This was more of an introduction for you to start to consider. Now, in the comments section on this video, if you would like to contact me or write to me, you are more than welcome to do that. I would appreciate your comments. I am absolutely confident there are some young people that will abuse me verbally, and you know, very often the abuser starts to feel insecure, right? Because their world is about to change, and sometimes, let me tell you, that change is going to be for good. Right? It's important, and I wanted to do this. I think I said before, to bring it out onto the table of conversation, where it's out in the open. There is some stuff said about this, but not enough. So I hope you'll pray about it. Now, finally, I would say to you, as I just said, to pray about this. If you are a Christian and you're in an abused situation where your young people, your children are abusing you, you need to go to God very, very quickly. You need to get together with some mature Christian people and discuss the situation. Get some real wisdom on it. Eventually, you're going to have to talk to your children about this. It may not be easy, but here's what I know. What you compromise to keep, if you're feeling obligated, emotionally blackmailed, what you compromise to keep, you'll most certainly lose. Because let me tell you something, parent, if you are the only one making the sacrifices, then as soon as you say no, they'll walk away. Or you'll jar them into recognizing that they've got to grow up. Either way, and of course this is why, I mean seriously, this is why some people will stay in an abused situation in order to keep the peace, in order to keep the status quo, because they become afraid that they're going to lose their children, afraid that they're going to lose this person in their life. Let me tell you, if fear has got you captive, it's going to keep you captive for the rest of your life until you do something about it. And it's true, you cannot change what you won't confront. You've got to confront it. Okay, you've got to confront this thing. So, I'm not suggesting you rush in right now. You might want to wait for the second edition on this. Subscribe to this channel so you don't miss out, so that you will capture the next edition and possibly the one after. We may do 3 of these, 4 of these. I hope this has caused you to think. If you are abused as a parent, my compassion and thoughts and prayers are with you. And I hope and pray that through this, that help is on the way. I pray that your children, no matter what age, will arrive at a place of maturity where love and kindness and goodness prevail through that whole relationship, where honor is given to the parents. And the Bible talks about this. Young people, if you're listening, honor your parents. I understand that some parents behave in an unruly way. Most people may not even respect them because of their behavior, but you are called to honor them. You are called to do that. It is their office. They are your parents. And of course, it's a bit of a two-way street. Now, we could get off down the rabbit trail on that one. However, friends, I'll just conclude this particular edition by saying God bless you. John chapter 14, I think it is, verse 27. Peace I leave with you. Jesus said this. Receive this, will you? Peace I leave with you. My peace I give to you. Receive the peace of the Lord within your heart. Go to God over the whole situation and let's begin the process of setting the captives free.